Grandpa didn't call it prepping. He called it living. Back then, survival wasn't a hobby. It was the only option. There were no solar panels, no Amazon shipments, and no smartphone alerts telling you how to survive a storm. There was just knowledge, instinct, and grit. He lived by a manual that wasn't written in any book. It was built through hard times, passed down through scars, stories, and calloused hands. Every lesson he learned came from necessity, not theory. He didn't study survival. He practiced it every day. The first thing you'd notice about his world was the toolbox. Rusted, dinted, heavy, but it held the blueprint of a man who fixed everything he could. That toolbox wasn't about what was inside it. It was about what it represented. Resourcefulness, patience, self-respect. Grandpa's Prepper Manual. Part 2. The Lessons We Forgot. Grandpa used to say, "The storm only surprises the man who thought the sky owed him peace." He didn't just prep his pantry, he prepped his mind. And that's the part most people never learn. The truth is, survival starts long before anything collapses. It begins with how you think. Before you store food, before you gather water, before you build shelter, you build your mindset. That's what Grandpa did every single day. He didn't let the world control his emotions. He didn't feed fear. He didn't wait for permission to act. When something went wrong, he fixed it. When something broke, he learned from it. And when people complained, he quietly got to work. He'd tell me, "You can't be ready for the storm if you act like it'll never rain." That mindset was his real prep, and it's the one thing most of us have lost. We have people today who can quote the news all day long, but can't grow a single tomato. We scroll through other people's disasters while ignoring our own weaknesses. But Grandpa didn't live like that. He believed in doing one thing every day that made you stronger, sharper, or more self-reliant. Sharpen a knife, hatch a hole, boil some water, chop wood, small things that built discipline. He said the body remembers what the mind practices. That's why when the hard days came, he didn't panic. He was already in shape to handle it. Mental toughness isn't built in emergencies. It's built in habits. He trained himself to live with less. A pot of beans could feed a family. A single match could light a week's worth of fires. He didn't waste. He didn't need much. And that made him powerful. The world calls that poverty. He called it freedom, because he never feared losing what he didn't depend on. That's the part that hits hardest. He wasn't a doomsday thinker. He was a realist. He'd seen bad times before and knew they always came back around. Inflation, layoffs, food shortages, sickness, different name, same test. The strong adapt, the weak wait. He told me once, a man's real job isn't to predict the future. It's to stay useful no matter what it brings. That was his quiet confidence. He didn't have to brag about being ready. He just was. He didn't argue about politics or who was to blame. He was too busy doing something about it. And when things got bad, people came to him, not because he had more, but because he shared. That was another piece of his manual. Help your neighbor, even when you don't have much. Because in hard times, character is currency. He knew a simple truth. The people who survive alone might live, but the people who survive together rebuild. He always believed the land would teach you what the world forgot. He'd say, "You can lie to people, but you can't lie to a seed. If you plant, water, and tend, you'll eat. If you don't, you won't." No excuses, just results. He used to walk his garden every morning, not just to check plants, but to check his peace. That small piece of soil taught him patience, discipline, and trust. He said the same things that grow plants grow people: light, nourishment, and care. And when things didn't grow, he didn't curse the earth. He asked what he could do better. That's what made him a real prepper. Not fear of losing, but respect for learning. He taught me how to read the sky, how to feel the air before a storm, how to store food so it lasts through winter. He showed me how to make vinegar from fruit, soap from ash, and medicine from weeds. He didn't read that online. He lived it. Sometimes I think about how much we've lost in just one generation. We replaced skill with convenience. We traded durability for speed. And now, one power outage, one shortage, one government shutdown, and people fall apart. But Grandpa never would have. He didn't depend on systems. He was a system. His mind was organized. His home was prepared. His heart was steady. He said, "If you stay grateful, you'll never go hungry." Because gratitude keeps the spirit alive when the belly's empty. He wasn't a man of many words. But when he spoke, it stuck. Like this one, learn to fix what you break, because someday no one else will. He used to keep a box of what he called maybes. Bent nails, half-broken tools, cracked handles. Things everyone else would have thrown away. But he'd save them, fix them, reuse them. And in a storm, when everyone else ran out of options, he had what he needed. That box was more than scraps. It was proof that patience and creativity are survival tools too. He lived like every day mattered, because to him, it did. He said, "Every sunrise is a new day to get better at being alive." That meant something simple but powerful. Every day you practice living without the system, you become harder to break. When the power grid goes down, the shelves empty, or the money fails, it's not the strongest who survive. It's the calmest, the cleverest, the consistent. He'd shake his head at how people panic today. He'd say, "They think a store is security. I think a shovel is." He believed everyone should know how to grow at least one thing. If you can grow a plant, you can feed your spirit. If you can feed your spirit, you can face anything. The older I get, the more I understand what he was trying to say. Prepping isn't about running from the world. It's about reconnecting to it. Learning again what every creature already knows, how to live in balance. He didn't fear collapse because he wasn't attached to comfort. He said comfort makes people soft, and soft people don't survive storms. He kept his body working, his mind sharp, his spirit clean. That was his armor. That's why he lived long, even when life was short on mercy. If you could sit at his table, you wouldn't hear talk of fear or shortage. You'd hear gratitude, laughter, prayer, and lessons. He didn't talk about prepping. He demonstrated it. He'd pour coffee, tell stories about winters with no power, or floods that washed half the town away. And he'd laugh, because he knew they always made it through. Not because they had help, but because they had each other. He used to say, "Survival isn't about hiding. It's about helping." That's what real men did. That's what real women did. They kept going no matter what. And that's what his prepper manual was really about. Not just tools or tricks, but mindset, morality, and meaning. It's not enough to can food if your heart's full of panic. It's not enough to store water if your mind is full of fear. You have to store wisdom, faith, and peace, too. Because one day, all the modern systems might fall apart. And when they do, all you'll really have left is what Grandpa had all along: knowledge, faith, grit, and love for the land that raised you. So maybe the best thing we can do now isn't to fear the future, but to remember the past, to go back, to relearn, to rebuild the manual, not from the internet, but from the soul. And if you're listening to this, maybe that's what you're here to do, to remember, to return, to rebuild what they tried to replace, and to live free the way he did. Because the world might have changed, but Grandpa's way still works. And deep down, we all know it's the only one that ever really did.